welcome back. This is episode 4, I think, of the massive coffee shop build series. Where we last left off, we had just set the last giant beam. It was the biggest beam. I believe it was 33 and a half feet, weighed almost 2,000 pounds, and it was a real bear to get in there, especially because we had to web the connection onto all the tails of the other beams. So it took a lot of finagling and finessing and then a fair bit of welding to get it into place, but it's in. From there, we had to actually start building a floor system. So for us, that's these huge 24-foot steel pan deck sheets. They're 24 by 3 foot, and we brought those up one by one in, I would say, maybe not an awe-inspiring fashion. Ideally, we would have room for like a crane or something that could pick up and move them along and drop them into location, but the best we could do was to simultaneously use a scissor lift and a forklift to raise them, securely fasten them on either side so that they wouldn't fall off, and then just muscling them into position to make sure that they clipped together and were rigid and sturdy. From there, we had to do what's called a puddle weld to affix the pan deck on top of the steel I-beams. A puddle weld is simply drilling through the steel material and into the top of the I-beam to create a divot and then filling it with weld. We kind of overdid it. We put a lot of them on, but we don't want any of those welds to pop, to cause squeaking or any sort of issues down the road, because we're about to cover that with insulation and then a fire treated 3/4 inch plywood. And then on top of that, we're going to put our finished floor. So that was a daunting process. I think it took us 3 or 4 days to really get everything up there. Another couple days to get it all puddle welded down. And there were some real funky cuts that we had to do, some really long, narrow rips. I don't know if you've ever ripped 24 feet of steel pan deck with a grinder, but it's quite the process. And then we had some weird angle cuts. We had to fit it around pipes and concrete bump outs and other headaches. It's just part of it when you're building something in this sort of odd tucked away corner. But all that went well. And now they're all down, and there was a moment that was really powerful for me when we were actually able to get up there and safely walk around on our mezzanine and see what it's going to look like down in the dining area, see what it looks like out the windows onto Beckley. And it was powerful to define the space and really start to see everything. Now, though, before we put that plywood down, we have to do some utility work, right? Some trades work. We have to run some electrical conduit in the valleys of that pan deck that we installed. It's got like a valley profile, so it's ridged for structural support, but that gives us a 3-inch, effectively a chase, for us to run some of our cabling in order to have lighting, which is pretty important from what I understand, is to have lights in a building like this. And there's also going to be one singular water line that travels from one side of the building back into the kitchen area so that we can drop it down and connect it to our water heater. Because another thing apparently you need for these sorts of setups is a water heater. We got one of those. Next, we have to finish framing, or that's what we've been working on. There's still more to do. We did a bunch of non-structural framing under the mezzanine. We need to be able to support all of the wall material, something to fix outlets to and divide the space up even further. So we framed out the restrooms, we framed the walls in the kitchen, we designated where we wanted all of the lights. I mean, they were on the plans, but you kind of fudge a little bit to make it really fit once you're installing it. We had to make some decisions on height of, the pass-through window for the kitchen line and things like that, but relatively simple decisions to make. We fixed a few things. We had that that floor sink that we forgot about when we did the pour, and I just hastily shoved a box over. We had to chip out concrete and cut that down and get it installed. And that was actually phase 2 of that repair. I spent a full day trying to do it myself and finally got so frustrated I walked away from it. Luckily, Richard came in and saved the day and chiseled it up and installed it. He made short work of it. I like to say I did 90% of the work. Well, anyways, he parked the car. I did most of the driving. There we actually had an issue where we cracked one of the pipes that was sticking up when we were trying to set beams. We repaired that pipe. Then we framed the private room, which for me was a really fun experience. I enjoy framing a fair bit, though I have never framed with steel. So it was a steep learning curve, but it took a little bit of time to determine, the thickness of gauge of steel to support the walls. And even though the roof or the ceiling of it's not going to bear any weight, we still wanted it to be very strong just in case someone down the line decided they were to walk up there for some reason. So all of that structural and sound and very safely affixed to the wall, the concrete wall, so it's not going to rack or pull away or any of those terrible consequences of not properly engineering something. So all of that is up and in place, and it was a chore, man. Nothing in this building, just like pretty much any time you do any sort of construction, nothing's really flat, nothing's really plumb. So pretty much every piece of material that I cut in there, except for the studs, had to be custom cut to length. And when you're working with that 16 gauge steel that we built that structure out of, 16 gauge steel does not cut super easy. I mean, it's a lot easier than the I-beams we were cutting, but you still have to use a grinder and spend a lot of time to make sure that all the cuts are perfect. And then I had to do a little fabrication where I was bending back some of the joists in order to create a flange to affix them to the concrete. So that was a little bit of a learning curve. I felt like a blacksmith there for a little while, hammering away at it, but we got all of that in. Feel great about that. It's a nice, tall, private area. The conference room is gonna have a 12-foot ceiling on it, so we're able to do the same sort of suspended lights. We're making some decisions on windows. We're gonna go with, I think, some round windows high up to kind of fit the theme of the restaurant in the evening, which I will disclose later in these videos. So we've made a lot of progress there. We're finishing up that utility run like I was talking about, so that next we can lay down the plywood and start framing upstairs. We have to build a bathroom up there, a utility closet, storage room, and that'll be a few days worth of labor as well. Since then, we've also installed our I-beam and C-channel at an angle to support our stair treads. So eventually we need a staircase to run up there, and that's really what we're trying to knock out as quickly as possible now. It took a long while to really figure out exactly how to do the stairs. An embarrassing amount of hemming and hawing. Eventually we did the smart thing and we went and got some 2x12 and just built a massive template to make sure that we had the exact angles for the top and the bottom. We also had a detail that we really wanted to nail on this set of staircase that we weren't able to nail on the previous shop, which is from the mezzanine, we want the I-beam to connect at the perfect angle so that it looks very intentional. So we had to create a little stub out off of the mezzanine and cut the perfect angle on it so that the I-beam for the stairs joined it perfectly. We were able to accomplish that, which was great. Now we're in the process of manufacturing all of the little clips that are going to support the treads. This is all cut out of C-channel, and we couldn't really pre-manufacture them until everything was set in place for the C-channel and the I-beam. And we've gone through a couple iterations of it. So some of these things I'm cutting for the third time now to get the correct profile. Mostly because the C-channel has this lip here that has to be accounted for. It's definitely thicker, and we want our brackets to make full contact into that C-channel so that it's easy to weld and there's no rocking going on. Then we're going to be able to cut all of our treads. The treads will be installed on top of the clips. Well, the clips will get welded in, put holes through the clips, treads on top, glue and screw the treads onto the clips. And then we're also going to do steel support on either end of the tread. Since we're using wood, we want to limit the amount of deflection as much as possible. We don't want you feeling like you're bouncing when you're going up the stairs. So in order to accomplish that, we got 8-inch I think it's 18 gauge material. That's 8 inches for the toe kick. So at the back, it'll be affixed to the tread. And then on the front, we're going to add a 1.5 inch piece of metal that will again help with deflection. That will give you a really strong feel, and it's also going to add the aesthetic that we like, which is kind of that natural wood plus iron or steel look. So we're going to be able to accomplish both those things, and we're really excited about it. We're getting that material on site now so that we can start putting in the first steps. Outside of that, it's been a lot of little jobs. We had to bring the electrician in, coordinate with him, buy a bunch of material. We had to connect the 4-inch conduit outside of the building into a junction box. That's got to turn into a 2-inch conduit. That's got to run up to the panels. We set the panels in place. We added a shutoff. There's going to be a transfer case there as well, so it's going to turn the high voltage into a usable voltage for most of our equipment. And then from there, we're able to split off and establish all of the circuits for lighting, outlets, all of that good stuff. So we've actually made great progress on that. A lot of the rough electrical work is done. We're about to do all the high stuff, so we need to run power up to the ceilings, which are, in our case, 26-foot ceilings. Yeah, 26-foot ceilings. And we need junction boxes up there, kind of in a straight line that's visibly attractive, so we can branch all of the suspended lighting off of that. Now, the way that Josh likes to do the lighting in his coffee shops is not just standard fixtures. Rather, he likes to have LED bulbs that are suspended at different levels to create sort of this whimsical depth and feel when you're in the space. And we're looking at maybe doing some other things with the lighting to add some interesting features. So we'll see. We're still hammering some of that out. But yeah, so in order to accomplish that, we got to get boxes up on the ceiling. We got to run conduit up to the ceiling. We have to run conduit to accept all of the equipment that we're installing. So that's our makeup air unit, our AC units, our exhaust unit for the hood vent, all that good stuff. Everything that you need for a commercial kitchen. So that's all being plotted out. Now the water, that has already been run to the space, but we've begun installing our backflow preventers. So we have one main backflow preventer that the 1-inch water runs to, and then that kicks over, like I said earlier, into the water heater. And then in front of a lot of the equipment that we're running our water into, like the ice machine, etc., soda gun, we're gonna need smaller backflow preventers there. So there's gonna be a series of backflow preventers throughout the building, and that's to protect the water source, right? We don't want anything that's in our lines somehow making its way back to the main and infecting anything down the line. That's why you need them. So it's been a lot of progress. It's been hard to capture, so hopefully this whole video makes some sort of linear sense, because every day I come in and it's a lot of little things, right? One day I'm hanging panels, and then the next day I'm putting in subfloor, and the next day I'm fabricating steel, and the next day I'm framing. So it's a little hard to sort of stitch it into a reasonable narrative for y'all. That's kind of why I like to do this little dialogue in the background, is it organizes my thoughts, and then I can just drop in the video clips to give you sort of a glimpse of what's going on. But there's been a lot of cool stuff happening, and we are very pleased with the progress. We're actually on schedule and within budget. I don't want to freak myself out, but I think there's a very realistic timeline that works, that we will actually get open when we say we're going to be open, and that we can start serving the community, because we've been starting to meet a lot of the people that are in the building. They're very nice, and they just keep looking at us like, open the damn shop. We want to drink your coffee. And that is a great problem for us to have. And we're working very hard to accomplish this. Josh is still running his coffee shop back in Arlington. I still have my real estate business stuff that I attend to. So we give it as much time and energy as possible. We both have kids. So there are some just constraints on our reality as far as time that we can commit. But it's been amazing. It's been really fun. To date, everything's still been very safe. There's been no real injuries, maybe a scrape or a cut here, mostly me being silly. So we're very grateful for that. And things are moving quickly. So hopefully it's not as long for the next video to come out. It was harder to record this one just because there was so many little things going on. It was really hard to feel like I have a video now. So thank you for your time. Please like and subscribe, do all that sort of stuff. I'd love for as many people as possible to see this video. I love you, be good, and come enjoy some coffee with us soon.